Okay, everybody. Hope everybody's having a real good week, and we'll start back with where we left off last time on contracts, and we left off at number 12 in our last lecture on contracts. What we'll do today is we'll end up with a contracts lecture, and then we'll go into UCC Article 2, and then we'll talk about products liability and talk about some warranties, exclusion of warranties, and the like. So we will conclude that. Those will be our topics today in our lecture. You follow me right along with the handout here. So we start at number 12 here, okay? In the event of a breach of contract, parties have a duty to mitigate the damages. All right, you have a duty to hold down the damages. In other words, if I contract with you to build a house for me, and I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to do it, and I pay you that you are building the house for me. You can't complete it for that price. You leave, and I come to the house, and I see there's a hole there, something in the roof that I could fix very easily. But I say, I'm going to wait and let it rain and ruin a lot more things so I can sue you for more money. I could fix it by putting some tarp on. I got just easy fix, but I don't do it. I want to hurt you because you didn't do what you said you was going to do, whatever. Well, I should sue you for breach of contract, but I can't just sit there and let something happen where I can mitigate those damages, hold the damages down, and then sue you for that. In other words, you've got to be proactive in, if you can see something there that you can keep the damages down, fix something, and not let the damages go up, then you need to do that. Just renting an apartment, let's say that you're renting an apartment, and you've signed a 12-month lease, you can't pay, you go 3 months, 4 months, you can't pay the rest of the rent. You leave. Then the landlord sues you for the rest of the rent. And you go to court. Now, you probably wouldn't have a lawyer, but if you had a lawyer, your lawyer would ask the landlord these questions. How long, in other words, the landlord's on the witness stand now. Let's put ourselves in court like we do, okay? So we're in court now. The landlord's on the witness stand. And your lawyer would ask the landlord that, okay, my client rented 4 months and you sued my client for the rest of the year, okay, for 8 months here. How long does it normally take you to rent one of those apartments, one of your apartments? And the person says 30 days. But you didn't rent it. No. Why didn't you rent it? I just didn't. You didn't rent it because you wanted the damage to go up so you could sue my client for more. Your client signed a lease. I don't care. I know my client signed a lease, but you could have rented that apartment in 30 days or less and not sue my client for someone. You could have mitigated the damages, couldn't you? You could have rented that apartment, okay? And then the landlord's lawyer is going to argue, well, they signed the contract, the lease controls, and all this, and that's right. But what I would do is always come back with this mitigation of damages. In other words, I would ask that landlord, how many, could you rent this apartment, or is it just and if you couldn't rent it, then it must be a bad place to live. But you could usually rent it within 30 days, something like that. But they don't do, they a lot of time what they'll do, of course what they do is they rent it, landlord will rent the apartment back, sue the person for the 8 months, and they get double pay out of the thing because they've got another renter in there. But most of the time the poor tenant don't have a lawyer, so they go to court, they don't know what to say, and in small claims court, and they end up having, they don't know about mitigation of damage, they don't know what to even ask about mitigation of damage. But anytime there is a contract and there is a breach or an anticipated breach of that contract, and you can hold down the damages. You're the wronged party, but you can hold down the damages. you have a duty to mitigate or hold down those damages. Okay? Mitigation of damages. All right, let's see what the next one is. Number 13, liquidated damage may be determined in advance of breach contract. Okay, I've been on the Airport Authority Board, Madison County Airport Authority Board for over 18 years. And we do a lot of work out there. We do a lot of contracts. You know in the last 18 years, some of you probably 18, 19 years old. I've been on the board longer than you've been alive. But we're always doing work out at the airport. We're always, doing something to the terminal, or certainly paving the airfields. We're doing all kind of building, all kind of things. If you go to the airport, you just look around. There's all kind of things going on out there. All right. Now, what we want to do, if we're doing something, especially in the terminal or on the airfields, we want to get that done because a lot of people go to that airport every year. So we don't want a situation going on at the airport that causes a lot of inconvenience to our people that come to the airport. Okay, people flying. So what we do is we will let contracts. Okay, you put out proposals and people bid. Different companies bid on certain contracts. We've had contracts, 8, 9, 10, 12 million, $15 million contracts out there. All right. Now they'll bid. All right. Suppose somebody has a low bid, but they're going to take 6 months longer to do the job, and somebody else comes in with a higher bid, but they can do it quicker, 6 months quicker than the other people. Okay. Now they're charging us more, but they say they can do it quicker. All right. Now, what we do is we have a liquidated damage clause in the contract. And because suppose we go with the company that says we'll get the job done 6 months faster than anybody else. Okay, we're relying on that, and we're willing to pay more. Let's say just whatever the contract is, say we're willing to pay more for that we can get this thing done 6 months quicker. Because there's just a lot of people in and out of that airport. We don't want to inconvenience people. Okay. Now, if that's what we're doing, if we're going to do that, then we want a liquidated damage clause in there that says, okay, y'all, we're letting the contract y'all because this company says you people say you're going to do it quicker. So therefore, for every week that you are late, you've got to pay us X amount of dollars in liquidated damage. Now, that has to be reasonable. It can't be unreasonable, but we can put a figure in there that says, okay, we're relying on you that you can get this contract done in 6 months. We're going to give you the contract, but if you can't get it done within this amount of time, for every week you go over, you got to pay X amount of dollars, and that can build up. So that puts the onus on them to get it done, to do what they said they could do on the contract, because that would be important to us. If we let the contract and we wanted to do it, get it done quicker, and the other companies had a lower bid, but it was going to take them 6 months longer. So it would be, if it's so important to us, that we would certainly want that liquidated damage clause in there. That's just determining damage in advance of a breach. In other words, you didn't do it 6 months, you breached the contract, but you're going to keep doing the work. We're not saying we just want to bring in somebody totally different, because that could really put things off. Keep doing it, but you got to pay us X amount of dollars. Now, I've told you before that I was one of the part owners of the Huntsville Stars. The Joe Davis Stadium out here used to be the stadium for the Huntsville Stars. One year we had, at the end of the year, we changed the seating, a lot of the seating out at Joe Davis Stadium. All right. Now, we let a contract to put the new seating in the stadium. When did we want that new seating in for our ball team? When did we want that in? We wanted it in by opening day, didn't we? Because you have in minor league baseball, you have a few days. I can tell you this, as been an owner of a minor league baseball team, you got a few days where you make your money. A lot of nights you go to the minor league ballparks, not a lot of people out there, but you make your money on the vacation. You got the July 4th. You got the big days, holidays, and you know, you get the big crowd. Opening day, opening weekends, big, you make big money there, okay? You make more money than you do, not big money, you never make really big money in minor league baseball until you sell the team, and you hope to make some money then. But you do, that's a big time for your games, for you to make money. So when did we want those seats done? We wanted those seats done by opening day. Now, if we didn't have those in by opening day, we were going to lose money, so we had a liquidated damage clause in the contract, didn't we? A liquidated damage clause being, okay, if you don't have this thing done by opening day, we're going to lose X amount of dollars because that's a big time for us. So we want this thing done by then. It was, but we had a liquidated damage clause in it just in case, all right? So that's what that liquidated damage clause, you're just saying we want it done by this time, and if we don't have it done by this time, you got to pay this much money because you didn't get it done. Or if it's if it's a continuing contract, you know, this much you're going to pay this much a week until you get it done. So that's a liquidated damage clause. Number 14 is specific performance. The court orders the breaching party to carry out the contract. Okay, specific performance. We've talked about that a little bit before. We know that all land sales contracts have to be in writing. All right. Suppose I have a contract with you, and I have my house for sale for $600,000, and you offer me $550,000, and I take that, and we sign that contract. Okay. All right. Then and you give me, you know, $10,000, whatever, earnest money. And I call you the next day and say, look, I'm sorry, but I just had a person offer me the full price, $600,000. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you earnest money back to you. Thank you for making that offer. But, you know, here's your earnest money back. Are you going to take your earnest money? Don't take your earnest money. Go see a lawyer and sue me for specific performance. You can make me sign that deed. You can make me sell that property for $550,000. Because in equity, every piece of property's price is unique and one of a kind, and you can go in the court of equity. It's not a jury trial, it's court of equity. Remember, court of equity, no jury trial no more. You want me to sign that deed to sell that property for $550,000. You can turn around and sell it for $600,000 if you want to the person that wants to buy it, but I got to sell it to you because I signed that contract. You can sue me for specific performance. You can make me sign that contract, okay? All right, let's go. Let's turn the page here and see what you're not turning the page, I guess. I don't know. You're looking at the computer, aren't you? I'm turning the page here. Number 15 is fraud. We've already talked about fraud, haven't we? We talked about fraud. You say, well, you talked about fraud as a tort action. I did, but when you're in law school and you take the course in contracts, you will see you'll study about fraud as a defense in a contract. And if somebody commits fraud, then you can get out of the contract. If somebody sells you the Corvette that you think it's a 2024 and it's a 2020, you can get out of the contract. You can sue them, but you can get out of the contract because of the fraud. That would be certainly if I con you. Some people call it fraud. Some people call it a con. If I con you some way to get your money, and I'm committing fraud, then you can get out of the contract because of my fraud. Now, again, I cover it primarily you see it as a tort cause of action, an intentional tort. Remember we talked about fraud, you can sue fraud in the same elements, but it can also be used as a defense to a contract. You can get out of the contract if you can show the other part. You can sue them for fraud, for the tort action, but you can also use it as a defense in a contract. Same elements, false representation of material fact, relied upon and damaged, okay? All right, undue influence, where one party's will or desire is substituted for that of another. All right. Undue influence is like this, okay? Suppose that you have a person that's a nurse, doctor, whatever, or you suppose you have a relative, and they go in to this place to your great grandmother or your grandmother, and they convince your grandmother to to sign a will, and leave everything in their estate to this person, disinherit everybody else. And let's say she's 87 years old. Let's say that she's not mentally incompetent, but she don't have Alzheimer's. She's old. But this nephew of yours, who is you all and the whole family knows is not a good person, has gone in and say her estate's worth, let's say, $10 million. And when it comes time to read the will or your contract, whatever, the will says, look, we left everything, he left everything to John. What? Okay. What you're going to say, and this could be the same thing with the contract. We're talking about unconscionability in a minute also. But undue influence is where somebody else's will, desire is substitute for that of another. In other words, Granny, this is what I want. It's not what you want, it's what I want. Okay? And that would be undue influence. Okay? So you would file a motion if it's a will. We'll talk about this when we talk about wills more. But if it's a will, you would file a lawsuit to set that whole will aside and say undue influence. If it was a contract, you would say undue influence. We'll talk about unconscionability in just a minute. But you would say that she was unduly influenced by my nephew over here to sell the land for X amount of dollars for hardly anything, because she was unduly influenced by him. In other words, it wasn't just not her will desire, it was his desire to do that, okay? I had a case where my client was keeping this elderly gentleman. He was in his late 80s. She had been keeping him for 6 months. And he took a liking to her. And he wanted to change his will and leave everything to her. Now, this man was very wealthy. He owned a chain of hotels. A very wealthy man. All right? And so he wanted to do that. So she loaded him up and took him to her lawyer. And the lawyer did the will. And he signed the will, leaving everything in his estate to her. He lived a couple of weeks after that, and he died. She took the will to probated it. The man had a son and a daughter, and they took their will, which was will that he'd made had in effect for a long time, and took it to probate. They took their will to probate. And now you got 2 wills down in probate. You got the one he signed right before he died, leaving everything to this nurse, and the son and daughter had a will left. They filed, leaving everything to them. All right, she could not. The son and the daughter filed a will contest, contesting the will that he signed, saying that he was incompetent and that she unduly influenced him. In other words, was not his desire. This is what they filed a lawsuit. They filed a lawsuit contesting the will. Set that will aside, and that will wasn't no good because of undue influence. They also said he wasn't competent. All right, she came and hired me. This was years ago. I was not an old lawyer then, and I took the case on a percentage basis. She didn't have any money. She had gone to some other lawyers, and they wouldn't take the case. I was a younger lawyer, and I was a little bit hungry. I wasn't little. I was real hungry. When you first come out of law school, the only people that hire you. I came out on my own, started practicing law on my own at 24 years old, and the only people that hire you is your friends and family. They don't think you're supposed to pay you. They're insulted if you charge them a fee. But anyway, this lady hired. I took her case. I took it 50-50. And she was glad to have a lawyer because she couldn't find a lawyer, and I took the case. So we go to court. This man was a very wealthy man, and like I told you, He had lawyers from Birmingham. He had lawyers from Atlanta, Georgia. He had a lot of lawyers in that courtroom. All right. She had me. And the whole thing was, their whole argument was that she unduly influenced him. That, in other words, she was his nurse, she was a caretaker, and she took him down to her lawyer. That I wasn't lawyer did well, but she had a lawyer. She took him down there and he did that will up. And the lawyer that did the will, I had him testify, he said that the man wasn't incompetent. They couldn't prove that the man was incompetent. They just said he was incompetent because he was old. But they didn't have a psychiatrist, anybody come in. They couldn't have anybody come in there and say, I had witnesses say he was not incompetent. They said he was incompetent because he liked to sit around and watch National Geographic shows of these animals. Well, I like to watch them. Does that make me incompetent? I like to watch these shows with little animals. I love that. Birds and stuff like that. I love my birds. Let's see that. You look at right now, maybe I'm incompetent. But no. That don't make you incompetent. That's what they were saying. He likes to sit around and what? No, that don't make you incompetent. Okay, so that leaves the competency parts out. You're not going to win on that. Fancy lawyers, you're going to you got to go undue influence. Is what they did, undue influence. Okay. Now here we go. The girl gets on the witness stand. Not a little girl, she's older. She gets on the witness stand. She started crying, saying how much she loved her daddy. Well, okay. But when I started asking her the questions, she quit crying. You always watch that in the courtroom when a person, they cry when one party answers, when one lawyer asks questions and the other lawyer starts asking questions, they quit crying and get mean. Which you like, if you're a lawyer, if you're a trial lawyer, that's what you like. They go from crying to just jumping all over the lawyer arguing with you. But anyway, so I says, you loved your daddy. You started crying a while ago. You loved your daddy so much. When's the last time you went to see your daddy? You lived over in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay? When's the last time you went to see your daddy? Well, a couple of years. But you couldn't, you loved him so much you couldn't get over. He was old, and he wasn't, in the best health in the world. But you couldn't come see him. Well, I sent him Christmas cards. Okay, well, that's fine, but you didn't go see him. You didn't, I called him. Well, how often you call him? I got your phone records here. How often did you call him up? Well, I tried to stay until I tried to call him at least once a month, really. I had the phone records, They didn't. All right, so there you go. So then the son testified. Oh, he loved his daddy. Daddy took him hunting when he was young, but he lived in a different state in New Jersey. When's the last time you went to see your daddy? Well, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, but we stayed in contact. You call him about as much as sister did over there, So there you go. So it comes down to this now. That's their case, all right. My client testimony was that he wanted to leave this to me. He wanted to leave it to me. That's what he wanted to do. Now, I got up into my final argument. Here, you ready? You got a jury in the box here. And I said, they got these big, fine, great lawyers, and they're all great. They're all good. They're biggest lawyers in these big cities. And she got me, but you know what else she's got? She's got you 12 people in the truth. Let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and I'm going to ask y'all this too, okay? That old man worked for that money. He come up with nothing. He started with absolutely nothing. And he worked hard. And he accumulated millions and millions of dollars, okay? Because he worked hard and he was a good businessman, he was an entrepreneur. He risked a lot, but he was an entrepreneur and he took chances and he did good and he made a lot of money. Now, did he have a right to leave that money to who he wanted to? Does he have that? He worked for it. Did he have to leave it? Now, you can't disinherit a wife, but you can disinherit children. Okay, if you try to disinherit your wife, she's going to come back. You get at least half of it because that'd be like intestate succession. We'll talk about that when we talk about wills later. That's be an interesting lecture when we talk about wills. But did he have a right to leave that property to who he wanted to? His. They didn't work for it. They didn't even go see him. Okay? But he enjoyed the company of this young lady. And she took care of him. And he wanted her to have it. And I asked the lawyer, heard the lawyer did the wills. Well, did you talk? He said, yeah, I wanted to leave it to her. That's what I want to do. I wanted to have it. Well, guess who won that case? They got up and talked about how he owed it to his kid. He didn't owe anything to them. They didn't even go see him. She took care of him. He had a right, I told the jury, to leave his property to who he wanted to, and he did. And guess what happened? We won the case. All right? And when you take a big civil case and you win the big civil case, you take it on a percentage basis, then, the thing about it is she didn't have money to hire a lawyer, so here you go. So anyway, that undue influence, I always talk a good bit about undue influence when I get to that part in the lecture, because that's kind of a question to me that, juries decide that, by the way. Judges don't decide that. They ruled for us. We won that case. They said that, you know what? He had a right to leave it to who he wanted to. That she did not unduly influence him. Okay? So that's that word, undue influence there. Okay? Probably a test question on that, because that's kind of dear to me. The unconscionable contracts, the contract may be, the term of the contract one-sided or too one-sided to be unjust. That's kind of, okay, let's take our undue influence. You could have undue influence and unconscionability in a contract, for instance. Let's go back to your ne'er-do-well nephew or cousin or whatever. There's always one. He goes in and I think the test question is something like, person goes in for like $100,000, that's a test question, for $100,000, and gives your grandmother, her property worth millions, to say she has 100 acres land out in Madison. That's that's very expensive. Okay, so it's worth millions. All right. So the cousin nephew goes in and says, "Grandmama said I'm gonna give you $500,000." And your grandmama says, she said, "Oh no," said that's way too much money for that. Now me and you, Granddaddy, we got this property way a long time ago. We didn't pay nothing like that for it. You don't have to pay $500,000. And your nephew says, no, that's what I want to do. I want to pay you that for that, because you've been such a good grandmama. That land's worth millions of dollars now. Okay? Now, let's say your grandmama's, she's competent. Okay, so she's not, you can't go, say you can't go and hire a doctor. You can hire a doctor, but the doctor says, psychiatrist, she's okay. Neurologist, she's okay. Nothing wrong with her. But what you want to do is you want to go into court and file an action, set that contract aside. Okay? You don't want to wait till he turns around and sells it for, $20 million. You want, as soon as you find out about it, you want to go in there and set that contract aside, okay? And your grounds are going to be unconscionability. That contract is too unfair, too one-sided to be upheld in court, okay? Now, the law don't look with disfavor on a good bargain. Let's suppose it's worth $10 million and he offered $6 million. Well, he's liable to keep it for that. He made a good deal. Now you say, well, come on, lawyer, you got to do better. I want you to put that formula up there and tell me exactly what, is it 7 million or 8 million or 6 million? What's the exact amount where it's not going to be unconscionable? No, you got to look at all the facts. You got to look at how old she was. You look at him. You look at but the law don't look with disfavor on good bargains. So, it could be, you can say, well, 6 million is not, that's unconscionable. Okay. 7 million. And if you're on the jury, you might as well $7 million. I'd say it's a good bargain, but I'd say that's not unconscionable. But the issue is whether or not the contract is so one-sided to unfair as to be upheld in court. Now, that would be unconscionability. That's an issue there. Undue influence is a jury issue. Unconscionability could be a court of equity. It could be where the judge decides unconscionability. So that's undue influence, one thing, and then you got unconscionability where it's too unfair, too one-sided to be upheld in court. All right, number 18, exculpatory clause in contract excuses the party from liability for negligence. Now, the law looks with disfavor on exculpatory clause. We talked about in our last lecture about the ball team and the ticket, Huntsville Stars ticket, where if you get hit with a foul ball, if you go to a hockey game and get hit with a hockey puck, there's that can happen. So an exculpatory clause on the ticket would be reasonable because that could happen if you're there, okay? But what if you go to the doctor and you're going to get your tonsils taken out and the doctor makes you sign a statement saying, if you die, whatever happens in this thing, you can't sue me. That's not going to be upheld in court. That's an exculpatory clause that would not be upheld in court. Suppose you come in my office and I said, whatever happens in here, you can't sue me for malpractice. And I don't file any motions. I don't go to court. I don't do anything. I wouldn't never do it. But and then you sued me for malpractice. And I said, well, look, she signed exculpatory clause in the contract said she can't sue me. Well, it ain't going to be upheld in court, okay? So again, if you go in here and like you go to the doctor's office, you go in to get your tonsils taken out, and he cuts your foot off or something, thought it was, or takes some kind of other surgery on you, and thought, oh my goodness, I messed up, or something happens in there, but made you sign this statement before you went to surgery that no matter what happens, you couldn't sue him. Well, you can't have that. That's an exculpatory clause that would not be allowed. But you can have it like the Stars, like we're in a ball team. Okay, you could have the exculpatory clause for the foul ball and the bats, but you couldn't say whatever happened to you at Joe Davis Stadium, we're not going to be liable. If we had on the ticket, no matter what happens to you in Joe Davis Stadium, you can't sue us. And supposedly something in the steps going up to your seats real slippery. You fall down and break your arm. Oh, we had in the ticket it said you can't sue us if anything happens at Joe Davis Stadium. That's not. We can put it in there, but it's not effective. It's because there cannot be an exculpatory clause for everything. So you go to the bathroom's dirty, messed up, and you slip down and fall. Well, you signed exculpatory. We said in the ticket, no, the ticket was for a specific thing that could happen, a foul ball or a bat to come up in the stands. That could happen, but we can't get out of all liability. So again, the law looks with disfavor on exculpatory clauses, but you can have them in specific instances, okay, where there's a known instance or something that could happen in this event that you're at, okay? All right, let's look at agreements not to compete must be reasonable. This certainly be a test question. Agreement not to compete must be reasonable with respect to time and territory. All right, let's pick a business here. Okay, let's say a spa, Mark's Spa. Okay, I don't have one, but Mark's Spa. All right, and my business is going good. I got a really good business. All right, you want to buy it. So I said, okay, I'll sell it to you for $1 million. And it's a good business. It's worth it. And you pay $1 million for that. Okay? And a month later, I go across the street and I've got Mac's Spa opened up right across the street from you. Now, a lot of your people that you had come into your spa that you paid $1 million for is going to come to me because they know me. And what if I start hiring some of your people? Some of the people that you thought was going to be working for you that were working for me, that they're going to come over there with me. All right. Now, what did you get? You didn't get anything. I got your business. I got my business back. You paid me $1 million, and I'm right across the street. So, what are you going to want in the contract with me? You're going to get a good lawyer, and that lawyer's going to draw up a contract, and in that contract, they're going to have a non-compete agreement. Now, that non-compete agreement has to be reasonable with respect to time and territory. All right, time and territory. All right, for instance, suppose the contract says I can never open up a spa anywhere in America. Is that reasonable? Time? No, never. Anywhere in America? No, that's not time and territory. It's not reasonable. So it gets set aside, and I'm back in business. But what if it says that I can't open up a spa in Madison County for a period of 18 months? Would you say that would be reasonable with respect to time and territory? I would say that would be reasonable, and I would say that would be something that you put in there. And I would say you could probably say Madison, Limestone County, Jackson County, Southern Tennessee. That may be reasonable. But if you said nowhere in the state of Alabama, or state of Tennessee, state of Mississippi, state of Georgia, for 5 years, I think that'd be unreasonable. Okay, and I think it'd be set aside. So you should have a non-compete agreement in your contract like that, but it has to be reasonable with respect to what? Say it. Time and territory. Okay. Now, if you ask me exactly what time and I can tell you that I've represented a lot of TV personalities in my career, and they have employment contracts with their stations, and the station says that if you voluntarily leave this station, you cannot go to another station, and they have this circle, and that's the area that their signal covers. Okay, like if it's in one local, it'd be in North Alabama, Southern Tennessee area. Okay, so it would say if you just voluntarily leave us during the term of your contract. Now, if your contract, you can go where you want to, but during the term of your contract, you cannot leave us and go to work for another television station in this viewing area for a period of a year. And that has been upheld in court. That's reasonable with respect to time and territory. Okay? All right, let's see if get us a couple of test questions here before we go any further here. Let's see here. Let's look at pull out some of this here. Let's see numbers. All right. Jim is 94 years old and sells his 1,000-acre farm worth millions to Stanley for $100,000. Jim wants to set aside the contract, but he is not insane. Jim should assert that the contract is A, unconscionable. Do I have to go further than that? What's the answer? A, I don't have to read anything else, okay? Let's see here. Susan wants, this is the last lecture. Susan wants to testify about statements made to her 2 days before signing the contract. This testimony is not admissible because of A, liquidated damage rule, B, novation rule, C, parole evidence rule. Answer, that's the last lecture, but might as well get it anyway. It's parole evidence rule, okay? Let's see. These damages are the amount of damages that the parties establish in a clause contained in the written contract. Read that again to you. These damages are the amount of damages that the parties establish in the clause contained in the written contract. A, compensatory. B, liquidated. Remember, you can establish the damages in advance of the breach. It's called liquidated damage, by the airport and stuff like that. So these are damages that you can establish in advance. So that the answer there would be liquidated damage. Okay. Let's see here. Susan wants to testify. We did that right there. This agreement. This is last week's, though. I read it anyway. This agreement involves a debtor's offer to settle a debt owed to the creditor that is different from the original contract and the creditor's acceptance of the debtor's offer. A, novation. B, quasi-contract. C, covenant not to sue. D, accord and satisfaction. Answer D, accord and satisfaction. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Okay, a contract clause limiting liability from negligent acts that will be enforceable if both parties to contracts are of equal bargaining strength. A, waiver of contract. B, disaffirmation clauses. C, exculpatory clauses. Answer, exculpatory clauses, because you can set that in advance, can't you? Okay. All right. An agreement, this is another question. An agreement not to compete will be upheld if the agreement is reasonable with respect to A, time and territory. I don't have to go further than that, do I? It's time and territory. Okay. I believe we got to, y'all got it figured out. So anyway, those are a few of the questions that we've covered there. Now let's go into what we call UCC Article 2. If you look at your outline here, sales, UCC Article 2, Uniform Commercial Code. All right. Now, you people go to law school. All right. You've taken contracts. All right. Taking contracts 1, contracts 2 in law school. Now you've signed up for course UCC Article 2. Professor comes in and says, forget everything you learned in contract law. We're taking UCC Article 2, and there's new rules. Now, the Uniform Commercial Code Article 2 applies to the sale of goods. Goods are all things which are movable at the time they're identified in the contract for their sale. We talked about that a little bit. Goods would be this book, okay? Anything, your clothes, your television set, your computer, what you're watching this lecture on, that's goods. So if you have a contract for the sale of goods, then contract law that we've just got through going over don't apply. UCC Article 2 applies. So if you have a contract for the sale of goods, you look to UCC Article 2. Now, the Uniform Commercial Code was promulgated years ago when I was first in law school. My daughter says in 1930. No, she said that when she was a teenager. She don't say it anymore. But when she was a teenager, you went to law school. You don't understand anything. You went to law school. You went to school back in the 20s. No, I didn't. I graduated in 1976. That's been a long time, but not 1920. But that's when Uniform Commercial Code first comes into effect, and it came into, people did that, lawyers and business people wanted Uniform Commercial Code because to be easier for businesses to transact business without lawyers. Well, anytime you relax rules, it's better for lawyers. You know, we can spend a year on a word. We can argue to a jury on a word. So if you leave us any kind of wiggle room where we're reasonable or something like that, man, you will take off on that. Okay. So the Uniform Commercial Code was promulgated, was put into effect by trying to make things easier for people to do business, but it really didn't. But anyway, so back to our thing. So if you're selling goods, horses, cows, briefcases, desk, whatever, you look to Uniform Commercial Code Article 2. Now, here you go. You're not going to have to learn all this. I think there's, on this lecture, I think there's 4 questions on this whole lecture right here, okay? This part, this UCC Article 2. All right, so what I'm not going to make you learn, it's a course in law school. I just want you to understand that that's where you would go look and go in the law book and go to and find the Uniform Commercial Code. You got Article 2 UCC, you got Article 3 negotiable instruments, secure transactions, Article 9, just different sections for different kind of commercial transactions. But now we're talking about the sale of goods, okay? So here are the rules. You've got what's called merchants and non-merchants. This is not on the test, this part's not. I just want you to kind of understand. All right, merchants and non-merchants. Who's a merchant? A merchant's person regularly deals in those goods. okay? A non-merchant would be like you having a yard sale. You're not a person normally dealing in those goods, okay? So in the Uniform Commercial Code, the law is one thing. When a merchant deals with a merchant, the law is one thing. If you have a merchant dealing with a non-merchant, the law is something else. And if you have a non-merchant dealing with a non-merchant, the law is something else. Such as you can have things like a risk of loss, where's the risk of loss at the loading dock or when it is delivered. You can have all of that stuff, and all that comes into play, whether or not it's a merchant, non-merchant, or non-merchant, non-merchant. The rules are different if you have a yard sale than if Walmart's dealing with you or Walmart's dealing with Target, okay? Two merchants dealing with each other. I'm not going to go into all that and make you learn all that, but that's just, I just want you to be aware of it. You can look at that. You can look at that up in Article 2, UCC Article 2, if you're looking at the sale of goods, okay? All right, so that's number 2. Goods include minerals, gas, and oil. Now, by the way, we talked about like last week that the light fixtures up here in this office here. That's part of the real estate. That would not be good. If you take it down and then sell it, that would be goods. Okay, the pictures on the walls here, those would be goods. Okay, they're not fixtures. They can be taken off the wall. All right. Let's see. The risk of loss, number 5. There's no test questions on that at all. Let's go to products liability now. Products liability refers to liability that manufacturers or other sellers in the chain of sales, such as wholesalers, retailers, have not only to immediate purchasers, but also to the general public, such as someone to whom the product was loaned, given, etc., a consumer or a bystander, for physical injury caused by the defective product they place on the market, for the failure of these products to perform adequately once they are purchased. Section 2 of the Restatement of Torts distinguishes between 3 types of defects that incur liability. 1A, manufacturing defect, B, design defect, and C, marketing defect. Okay? Let me tell you how this goes. I've had a lot of cases like this in my career. Suppose you have and I had a case, had several cases, but were a lot of case problems like this, but several cases where cars have blown up and burned people to death. Where you have an accident and the car explodes and people burn to death. I had a case where there were 2 young ladies in the front seat of the car. They were rear-ended. It was raining real bad. They were rear-ended. Their car exploded and they burned to death in the car. Now, first off, and I've done a lot of these cases, but let me tell you about this one just so you kind of see how it goes. The first thing the manufacturer will say, number 1, that they died in the accident, not the fire. Okay. So if you've ever seen pictures where people are burned to death in an automobile or anywhere, and there were 2 of them together in the front seat, that I don't want to upset anybody here, but the bodies they don't look like bodies, okay? They're kind of melted together. So we had to get the bodies exhumed, okay? And that's difficult. You file a court order, you get the bodies exhumed, and we have a forensic pathologist that came in there, and the automobile company had their forensic pathologist come in to see if we could prove that, and it was very difficult because after a body's burned, it's hard. But anyway, we have very good forensic pathologists that we hire from time to time. So they did it, and they come to the conclusion that there was some smoke in the lungs of both of the girls. So, and we also found a witness later on that this witness said that they came up after and they heard screaming. So we had a witness, and then we had that. Okay. Now, the next thing the company comes up with is it really wasn't our fault because it was something that the car had been worked on before by this shade tree mechanic, and it was their fault. So then we have to come and show that the reason that it was done was a defect in what you did, not what the shade tree mechanic did. But we have to hire other experts to come in and prove that. In other words, let me say this. We just got through settling a case where our client got blowed up. I'm not going to tell you we had to sign a non-disclosure. But anyway, it took us 7 years. And that case was appealed 3 times to the Alabama Supreme Court and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. It took us 7 years. This lady was blown up, and to settle the case. And we got right up to trial. And, we had all the experts and everything, but it took 7 years. And the client gave us a beautiful thing they prepared. It said, the McDaniel, 7 for 7 years, the appeals and stuff like that. It was a sweet thing that our client did for us. But these companies, they don't come in and write you a check. You say, well, why not? They don't. Okay. They did. We had to go through so much that in that products liability where the girls got blown. And I've had several cases, airbags deploy and they break your client's neck. The airbag comes out and kills your client. Okay. Well, we're not at fault. Blah blah blah. Blah. Here we go. So you go in and you get your experts and all you kind of stuff. The Lehigh bus case we had, I told you about, we had all those young kids were injured, young students were injured, and we had 27 and then 2 of the 4 death cases in that case. And the insurance company was saying, the company representing Laidlaw, the bus company said that, a car had hit the front of the bus and knocked it over the interstate there, and over killed and did all this damage. Our experts said that car hitting the front of that bus wouldn't be no more than a dog hitting it. Okay, took a long time to get those cases resolved, but we got them resolved favorably. But companies don't you think, well, that's just why? I mean, it's obvious. No, when they start getting experts involved and their experts say something, but by the way, do you have enough money to go out and hire the best forensic pathologist, in the nation? I'm talking to you right now. I mean, do you if you have a product that blows up and hurts you real bad, we, in the bus case, we had to pay the state to close down the interstate on a Sunday afternoon out here. And then I've told you, I think before in this case, we had our experts come in from Denver, Colorado, best reconstruction people in the nation, come in and do that. Did they come just to help us? No, we had to hire them. We had to pay them. Did the Laidlaw have a company? Did they have people there? Yeah, they had their experts too. And they had their opinions. Okay, but do you have enough money to take something like that on? It costs a lot. I promise you, it takes a whole lot. Okay, and if you take a criminal case on pro bono, then not state appointed, pro bono. I don't take state appointed cases, but I do take pro bono cases from time to time. We get letters every week from people in death row in the different states of death row. And if we take one on we used to pay a lot of money for our experts to try to come in and try to figure this stuff out here. But anyway, that's a little bit about products liability there. I don't think I have any test questions on that, but it's kind of interesting for you to know, I think. But let's look at warranties, okay? You said there you have express warranties. Express warranty is something you actually say about the product. This is a 2024 Porsche something with this kind of engine in it, and you say that, and that's express warranty. Okay. So if you say something about a product, that's an express warranty. If you say something or write something about it, that's an express warranty. If you say this is a 1968 GTO, then it's better be a 1968 GTO. If you say this, This is a 1968 GTO, and it's the best car ever been built. Now, it is the best car ever been built. I had one in high school. 1968 GTO. It is the best car that ever been built. But if I tell you this is a 1968 GTO and I'm selling it to you and you buy it, and it is a 68 GTO, but then you sue me because you say, well, I read this car magazine thing said it wasn't the best car ever been made. Well, that's not express warranty. It's called puffing. I actually believe that, though, by the way. I think it is the best car that's been built. But I guess it's like a lot of things. First things, it's the best car, whatever. All right, so that would be, the express would be puffy if I said it's the best car. But whatever, if I say something specific about a product, that's an express warranty. Implied warranties. Now, there are warranties that are automatic. They're just automatic, okay? Implied warranties would be fitness for a particular purpose and merchantability. If I buy a washing machine from Targets or wherever you buy Bob Wallace Plants, wherever, or Home Depot, whatever, Lowe's, if I buy a washing machine there, it needs to wash. I don't care what they say. It's got to be merchantable. Now, what if I went down to Walmart and you own, let's say you own the baseball team or the hockey team or whatever, and you buy that machine that's supposed to be, that washing machine just supposed to be for home use, and you start using it for commercial use, and it blows up, and you end up buying 3 or 4 of them, and they all blow up, and finally going to say, well, wait a minute, you can't get it. What are you doing with these washing machines? Well, I'm washing these hockey uniforms every night. No, it wasn't made for that. Okay? Implied warranty for merchantability and fitness for a particular purpose. What if I buy a car and I go to take it out to the racetrack and race it, and it blows up? Was it made to be a race car? No, it was not. It's not fit for that purpose. Okay, so there is an implied warranty. It don't have to be in the paperwork. Implied warranty for merchantability. It's merchantable. It's supposed to do this. Okay, and it's fit for a particular purpose. Those are the 2 implied warranties: merchantability and fitness for a particular purpose. Not express warranties. They're automatic. Okay, implied warranties. Okay. Now, how do you get out of warranties? If you want to sell a product and you don't want a warranty in it, you say as is. As is with all faults. You put that in there. This day and time, if I was selling something, and I wouldn't, and companies can't do this, but if I was just an individual selling something, I'd sell it as is. Matter of fact, if I was selling a house, I'd sell that. I'd say, I don't care if it's a perfect house, best house ever been built. I'd say as is, because we live in a time where there's a lot of lawyers and a lot of lawsuits being filed, and a lot of people come in and say that, well, this wasn't exactly right. Well, it ain't perfect, but it's not anything wrong with it. Well, we're going to see you. All right. But if you sell something as is with all faults, you're waiving all warranties. Okay? You're saying that's no warranties. So I would say if you're going to do that, if you're selling something to somebody, just sell it as is with all faults. Or you say 10 days, whatever, and after that, no warranties or whatever. But I would do that. Exclusion of warranties. Number 5, it's not a test question, but number 5, the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act prevents deceptive warranty trade actions and requires terms and conditions to be clear and understandable. Read the fine print, what it says. If you look at these advertisements on TV and you got these little bitty words down there after all these actors and everything doing, you got the little bitty words, so you can't read that. And well, we've said it, we put the exclusion there. Yeah, you did. All right, but anyway, so that's got the products liability. Biggest thing about products liability is understand that anybody that gets hurt as a result of that product, they would have a lawsuit. The person, the bystander that gets hurt. There's a lot of people that can be hurt by a defective product. But also know this, and I guess the best thing for you to know is on product liabilities is the company just don't come in and write you a check. All right, no matter how bad you hurt. I've had cases where people paralyzed from the neck down, horrible incidents, just horrible cases where they've been injured because of defective product, and you just got to go through you got to go through it, okay? And as horrible as it is, but that's the nature of, I guess that's the nature of the beast, as they say. Let's get a couple more questions here before we call it quits for today. Let's look here. Number 10 here. Let's get some of UCC Article 2 questions here. Okay. A seller can create this kind of warranty by making representations concerning the quality, conditions, description, or performance potential of the goods. A, implied. B, valid. C, express. Answer C, express. All right, next question. These warranties are created by law from the facts of the case and are not expressly stated by the parties. A, implied. Don't have to go no further than that, do it. The answer there to that question is A. All right, let's see what this one is here. 21. Let's see here, 21. Okay, UCC Article 2 relates to the sale of A, real property, B, services, C, computer software, D, goods. Answer D, goods. Okay? Okay, I think that's pretty well. All right, this is the only other question on Article 2. UCC Article 2 will cover which of the following contracts? A contract for the sale of computer keyboards, and that's going to be the answer in that. B is the contract for the sale of a grocery store business. C, a contract for the sale of financial consulting service. D, all of the above, and the answer is A, the computer keyboard, because that's goods, isn't it? I got the computer keyboard right here in front of me. I can move it, can I? I can sell that. That would be goods. All right, that's got this lecture wrapped up. I think we're ready for the next test. Everybody's doing good. I'm proud of everybody in this class, and y'all all keep up the good work, and I'll have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you so much for listening to this lecture.